first chapter of this book explains that overthinking is not just about obsessing over every small detail. It defines overthinking as an out-of-control thought process and putting our cognitive instinct in overdrive. It further explains that being analytic, evaluating, and worrying is not a terrible thing. However, some of them become bad when they aid our overthinking. For every time you overthink, there's also a possibility that you're suffering from anxiety. Anxiety can have two major causes: genetics and the environment. When we live in an environment full of unhealthy stress, anxiety becomes more common. Chapter 2 starts by explaining how to combat stress-induced overthinking. The first step towards stress management is to take a look at the 4 A's. Avoid that you cannot control. Alter the stressors. Accept it. Adapt to stressors. Another way to deal with stress is to keep a diary of your thoughts. When we write our thoughts down, it helps us analyze them and see patterns. Once we notice these patterns, they can help us reduce stress. The last technique is the 5-43-2-1 technique. It can help you overcome panic attacks, and it can also help you deal with anxiety in a healthy way, and prevent it from turning into a worse problem. When you're feeling stressed, just focus on the 5 things you can see. Once that's done, go on to 4 things that you can touch. One more sense to explore is 3 smells in the environment. You will need to do 2 things that you can hear, and 1 thing that you can taste. You can end by taking one last deep breath and following the 5-5-5 rule. Inhale for 5 seconds. Then hold it for 5 seconds more. Now you have to exhale, but this time for 5 seconds. Distractions like this can help you stop overthinking. Chapter 3 starts off by mentioning how you can manage your time in order to alleviate anxiety. It lists one of the major causes of anxiety as poor management of time. This happens because we prioritize things that don't really matter. When the time to relax needed, we can't have it. Some tips to manage our time more efficiently include Allen's input processing method, which involves identifying and managing external stimulus. We also need to learn how to take in as many inputs as possible and analyze them. These are things we can actually do something with. The next thing we do is prioritize based on importance and then make plans. One way to do this is by setting SMART goals. Make sure that your goal is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and has a time limit. Chapter 4 talks about how to find instant Zen. Zen often refers to a state of peace, but it can also mean calmness when used in the context of anxiety. Stress and anxiety can put a lot of pressure on you, and it's often harder to deal with than other emotions. One way to find some relief is by reducing your stress levels. The first technique to do this is called antigenic training, which helps you to gain control over your feelings and emotions. The second technique is called guided imagery. Here, you should find a comfortable position and then imagine a place where your 5 senses are stimulated in a gratifying and pleasant way. Relaxation is important, so make sure the place you pick makes you feel at ease. Situate yourself in a position where it helps your imagination. And picture how awesome the place will be as it starts to relax your nerves. The last technique is called progressive muscle relaxation. It gauges that, as your muscles relax, so will your brain's activity. This is done by tensing up first and then experiencing the gradual lowering of tension. Chapter 5 opens by showing how we have to rethink our thoughts. Negative thoughts cause lots of anxiety and put us in a tough spot. But with cognitive behavioral therapy, we can identify these patterns and replace them with more positive thoughts. By changing your way of thinking, you'll not only be improving your mental health, but you'll also be fundamentally, yet subtly altering the paradigm with which you approach every other area of your life. To do this, the first thing to do is identify the different distortions of how you think. People are in a state where they think of stuff as being very positive. Or other times they start to view things in an extreme scenario which is not always accurate. Mindfulness is the idea of constantly becoming aware of your thoughts and how they affect the big picture. It's simple, but it provides a way to reduce anxiety, worry, and stress in our lives. For instance, if you're focusing on bad thoughts, then that's all you'll see, even if your other attributes are perfect. When a bad thought or person pop into your head, it can be helpful to just say no. Chapter 6 starts with an overview of some newfound attitude and regulation. These sections talk about how we can implement some tactics to maintain our new favorable habits. One of the techniques in life is to focus on what you can control, what you can do, and what you have. Negative mindset is a bad state to be in, because you start questioning what you could do if you had this, do that, or have control over that. Making plans for the future and living your life in the present are two different things. This chapter reminds us to enjoy the present and not neglecting it for futures that we can't foresee. So don't forget about today for a tomorrow.